The Alans were an Iranian nomadic pastoral people of antiquity. The name Alan is an Iranian dialectical form of Aryan, a common self-designation of the Indo-Iranians, possibly related to the Massagetê. The Alans have been connected by modern historians with the Central Asian Yansei and Aorsi of Chinese and Roman sources respectively, having migrated westwards and become dominant among the Sarmatians on the Pontic steppe. They are mentioned by Persian and Roman sources in the 1st century AD. At the time they had settled the region north of the Black Sea, and frequently raided the Parthian Empire and the Caucasian provinces of the Roman Empire. In 215–250 AD their power on the Pontic steppe was broken by the Goths. Upon the Hunnic defeat of the Goths on the Pontic steppe around 375 AD, many of the Alans migrated westwards along with various Germanic tribes. They crossed the Rhine in 406 AD along with the Vandals and Suebi, settling in Orléans and Valence. Around 409 AD they joined the Vandals and Suebi in the crossing of the Pyrenees into the Iberian Peninsula, settling in Lusitania and Carthaginiensis. The Iberian Alans were soundly defeated by the Visigoths 418 AD, and subsequently surrendered their authority to the Hasdingi Vandals. In 428 AD, the Vandals and Alans crossed the Strait of Gibraltar into North Africa, where they founded a powerful kingdom which lasted until its conquest by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century AD. The Alans, who remained under Hunnic rule, founded a powerful kingdom in the North Caucasus in the Middle Ages, which ended with the Mongol invasions in the 13th century AD. These Alans are said to be the ancestors of the modern Ossetians. The Alans spoke an Eastern Iranian language which derived from Scytho-Sarmatian and which in turn evolved into modern Ossetian. Name: the various forms of Alan: Greek, lambda alpha nu omicron iota, Alanoi, Chinese, Alan Liao in the 2nd century, Alan in the 3rd century, and Ayan and later Alanga are Iranian dialectal forms of Aryan. These and other variants of Aryan were common self-designations of the Indo-Iranians, the common ancestors of the Indo-Aryans and Iranian peoples to whom the Alans belonged. Scarcer speakings include Alani or Halani. The Alans were also known over the course of their history by another group of related names including the variations Asi, As, and Os. It is this name that is the root of the modern Ossetian. History. Timeline: Early Alans. The first mentions of names that historians link with the Alani appear at almost the same time in Greco-Roman geography and in the Chinese dynastic chronicles. The 4th century Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus considered the Alans were formerly called Massagetæ, while Dio Cassius wrote that they Massagetæ. It is likely that the Alans were an amalgamation of various Iranian peoples, including Sarmatians, Massagetæ and Sakas. Scholars have connected the Alans to the nomadic state of Yansei mentioned in Chinese sources. Yansei is first mentioned in connection with late 2nd century BC diplomat Zhang Qian's travels in chapter 123 of Shija. Yansei of Chinese records has again been equated with the Aorsi, a powerful Sarmatian tribe living between the Don River and the Aral Sea, mentioned in Roman records, in particular Strabo. The later Han Dynasty Chinese chronicle, the Huanshu 88, mentioned a report that the steppe-land Yansei had become vassals of the Kangju and was now known as Alan Liao Y. A. Zadny Pravsky suggests that the Kangju subjugation of Yansei occurred in the 1st century BC, and that this subjugation caused various Sarmatian tribes, including the Aorsi, to migrated westwards and playing a major role in ushering the migration period. The 3rd century Valior also notes that Yansei is now known as Alan, although they are now no longer vassals of the Kangju. In the 1st century AD, the Alans migrated westwards from Central Asia, achieving a dominant position among the Sarmatians living between the Don River and the Caspian Sea. The Alans are first mentioned in the Vologases inscription, which reads that Vologases I, the Parthian king c. AD 51–78, in the 11th year of his reign, battled Kaluk, king of the Alani. The contemporary Jewish historian Josephus supplements this inscription. Josephus reports in the Jewish Wars how Alans living near the Sea of Azov crossed the Iron Gates for plunder and defeated the armies of Pacorus, king of Media, and Tiridates, king of Armenia, two brothers of Vologases I. 4. Now there was a nation of the Alans, which we have formerly mentioned somewhere as being Scythians, and inhabiting at the lake Meotis. This nation about this time laid a design of falling upon Media, and the parts beyond it, in order to plunder them, with which intention they treated with the king of Hyrcania, for he was master of that passage which King Alexander shut up, with iron gates. This king gave them leave to come through them, so they came in great multitudes, and fell upon the Medes unexpectedly, and plundered their country, which they found full of people, and replenished with abundance of cattle, while nobody durst make any resistance against them, for Pacorus, the king of the country, had fled away for fear into places where they could not easily come at him, and had yielded up everything he had to them, and had only saved his wife and his concubines from them, and that with difficulty also, after they had been made captives, by giving them 100 talents for their ransom. These Alans therefore plundered the country without opposition, and with great ease, and proceeded as far as Armenia, laying all waste before them. Now Tiridates was king of that country, who met them in fought them, but had luck to not have been taken alive in the battle, for a certain man threw a net over him from a great distance, and had soon drawn him to him, unless he had immediately cut the cord with his sword and ran away, and so prevented it. So the Alans, being still more provoked by this sight, laid waste the country, and drove a great multitude of the men, and a great quantity of the other prey they had gotten out of both kingdoms, along with them, and then retreated back to their own country. The fact that the Alans invaded Parthia through Hyrcania shows that at the time many Alans were still based northeast of the Caspian Sea. By the early 2nd century AD, the Alans were in firm control of the lower Volga and Kuban. These lands had earlier been occupied by the Aorci and the Saraces, whom the Alans had either absorbed or pushed westwards. It is likely that Alan influence, however, stretched further westwards, encompassing most of the Sarmatian world, which by then for the first time possessed a relatively homogeneous culture. In 135 AD, the Alans made a huge raid into Asia Minor via the Caucasus, ravaging Media and Armenia. They were eventually driven back by Arian, the governor of Cappadocia, who wrote a detailed report that is a major source for studying Roman military tactics. In 215–250 AD, the Germanic Goths expanded southeastwards and broke the Alan dominance on the Pontic steppe. The Alans, however, seem to have had a significant influence on Gothic culture, who became excellent horsemen and adopted the Alanic animal-style art. After the Gothic entry to the steppe, many of the Alans seem to have retreated eastwards towards the Don, where they seem to have established contacts with the Huns. Ammianus writes that the Alans were somewhat like the Huns, but in their manner of life and their habits they are less savage. Jordanus contrasts them with the Huns, noting that the Alans were their equals in battle, but unlike them in their civilization, manners and appearance. In the late 4th century, Vegetius conflates Alans and Huns in his military treatise, Hunorum Milanorum Canatio, the nation of Huns and Alans, and collocates Goths, Huns and Alans, exemplar Gothorum Alanorum Hunorum Ket. Migration to Gaul around 370. According to Ammianus, the peaceful relations between the Alans and Huns were broken after the Huns attacked the Don Alans, killing many of them and establishing an alliance with the survivors. These Alans successfully invaded the Goths in 375 together with the Huns. They subsequently accompanied the Huns in their westward expansion. Following the Hunnic invasion in 370, other Alans, along with other Sarmatians, migrated westward. One of these Alan groups fought together with the Goths in the decisive Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, in which Emperor Valens was killed. As the Roman Empire continued to decline, the Alans split into various groups. Some fought for the Romans while others joined the Huns, Visigoths or Ostrogoths. A portion of the Western Alans joined the Vandals and the Suebi in their invasion of Roman Gaul. Gregory of Tours mentions in his Liber Historiae Francorum that the Alan king Respendiel saved the day for the Vandals in an armed encounter with the Franks at the crossing of the Rhine on December 31, 406. Under Bigor, they infested Gallia roundabout, till the reign of Petronius Maximus, and then they passed the Alps in winter, and came into Liguria, but were there beaten, and Bigor slain, by Ricimer, commander of the emperor's forces. Under Goar, they allied with the Burgundians led by Gundaharius, with whom they installed the usurping emperor Jovinus. Under Goar's successor Sangiban, the Alans of Orleans played a critical role in repelling the invasion of Attila the Hun at the Battle of Chalons. After the 5th century, however, the Alans of Gaul were subsumed in the territorial struggles between the Franks and the Visigoths, and ceased to have an independent existence. In order to quell unrest, Flavius Aetius settled large numbers of Alans in various areas, such as in and around Armorica. Several towns with names possibly related to Alan, such as Alanville, Evelyn, Alainville and Beecher, Lorey, Alains and Alanville, Loia, and Les Alains, are taken as evidence that a contingent settled in Armorica, Brittany. Other areas of Alan's settlement were notably around Orleans and Valentia, Hispania and Africa. Following the fortunes of the Vandals and Suebi into the Iberian Peninsula in 409, the Alans led by Respendiel settled in the provinces of Lusitania and Carthaginiensis. Alani Lusitania me Carthaginion som provincias, a Wandali cognomen Salingi barati camsortienter. The Siling Vandals settled in Baetica, the Suebi in coastal Galaretia, and the Asdang Vandals in the rest of Galaretia. Although the barbarians controlled Hispania, they still comprised a tiny minority among a much larger Hispano-Roman population, approximately 200,000 out of 6 million. In 418, the Alan king, Itaches, was killed in battle against the Visigoths, and this branch of the Alans subsequently appealed to the Asdang Vandal king Gunderic to accept the Alan crown. The separate ethnic identity of Respendiel's Alans dissolved. Although some of these Alans are thought to have remained in Iberia, most went to North Africa with the Vandals in 429. Later the rulers of the Vandal kingdom in North Africa styled themselves Rex Vandalorum e Alanorum. There are some vestiges of the Alans in Portugal, namely in Alenque, in the construction of the castles of Torres Vedras and Almorol, and in the city walls of Lisbon, where vestiges of their presence may be found under the foundations of the Church of Santa Lucia. In the Iberian Peninsula, the Alans settled in Lusitania and the Carthagines provinces. They became known in retrospect for their massive hunting and fighting dog of Molosser type, the Alaunt, which they apparently introduced to Europe. The breed is extinct, but its name is carried by a Spanish breed of dog still called Alano, traditionally used in boar hunting and cattle herding. The Alano name, however, has historically been used for a number of dog breeds in a few European countries thought to descend from the original dog of the Alans, such as the German Mastiff and the French Dogue de Bordeaux, among others. Medieval Alania. The Alans, who remained in their original area of settlement north of the Caucasus, came into contact and conflict with the Bulgars, the Gokturks, and the Khazars, who drove most of them from the plains and into the mountains. The Alans converted to Byzantine Orthodoxy in the first quarter of the 10th century, during the Patriarchate of Nicholas I Mystikos. Al-Masudi reports that they apostatized in 932, but this seems to have been short-lived. The Alans are collectively mentioned as Byzantine Rite Christians in the 13th century. The Caucasian Alans were the ancestors of the modern Ossetians, whose ethnonym derives from the Namas, a sister tribe of the Alans. The Armenian geography uses the name Ashtagor for the most westerly located Alans, a name which survives as Digger and still refers to the western division of the Ossetians. Furthermore, in Ossetian, ASI refers to the region around Mount Elbrus, where they probably formerly lived. Some of the other Alans remained under the rule of the Huns. Those of the Eastern Division, though dispersed about the steppes until late medieval times, were forced by the Mongols into the Caucasus, where they remain as the Ossetians. Between the 9th and 12th centuries, they formed a network of tribal alliances that gradually evolved into the Christian kingdom of Alania. Most Alans submitted to the Mongol Empire in 1239 to 1277. They participated in Mongol invasions of Europe and the Song dynasty in southern China, and the Battle of Kulikafo under Mamari of the Golden Horde, better source needed, in 1253. The Franciscan monk William of Rubruck reported numerous Europeans in Central Asia. It is also known that 30,000 Alans formed the royal guard of the Yuan court in Dadu. Marco Polo later reported their role in the Yuan dynasty in his book Ilmilyan. It's said that those Alans contributed to a modern Mongol clan, Asud. John of Montecorvino, Archbishop of Dadu, reportedly converted many Alans to Roman Catholic Christianity in addition to Armenians in China. In Poland and Lithuania, Alans were also part of powerful clan of Ostoja. It's believed that some Alans resettled to the north, merging with Volga Bulgars and Burtus, eventually transforming to Volga Tatars. It is supposed that IASI, a group of Alans, have founded a town in Niev, Romania, called IASI near Prut River. IASI became the capital of ancient Moldova in Middle Ages. Later history descendants of the Alans, who live in the autonomous republics of Russia and Georgia, speak the Ossetian language, which belongs to the northeastern Iranian language group and is the only remnant of the Scytho-Sarmatian dialect continuum, which once stretched over much of the Pontic steppe and Central Asia. Modern Ossetian has two major dialects: Digger, spoken in the western part of North Ossetia, and Ayan, spoken in the rest of Ossetia. A third branch of Ossetian, Jassic, was formerly spoken in Hungary. The literary language, based on the Ayan dialect, was fixed by the national poet, Costa Katagorov. Physical appearance. The 4th century Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus wrote that the Alans were tall and blonde. Nearly all the Alani are men of great stature and beauty. Their hair is somewhat yellow, their eyes are terribly fierce. Genetics. In a study conducted in 2014 by V. Vilianskian on bone fragments from 12 Alanic burials on the Don River, 6 samples turned out belonging to Y-DNA haplogroup G2 and 6 samples belonging to mtDNAi. The fact that 6 of the samples belong to the same Y and mtDNA raises the possibility that the tested individuals belong to the same tribe or, even were close relatives. Nevertheless, this is a strong argument for direct Alan ancestry of Ossetians and against the hypothesis that Ossetians are Alanized Caucasic speakers, since the major haplogroup among Ossetians is G2*. In 2015, the Institute of Archaeology in Moscow conducted researches on various Sarmato-Alan and Saltovo-Mayaki culture Kurgan burials. In this analysis, the 2 Alan samples from 4th to 6th century AD turned out with Y-DNAs G2 P15 and R1AZ94, while from the 3 Sarmatian samples from 2nd to 3rd century AD 2 turned out both with Y-DNA J1M267 and 1 with R1A. And the 3 Saltovo-Mayaki samples from 8th to 9th century AD turned out with Y-DNAs G, J2AM410 and R1AZ94 respectively. Archaeology. Archaeological finds support the written sources. P.D. Rao first identified late Sarmatian sites with the historical Alans, based on the archaeological material. They were one of the Iranian-speaking nomadic tribes that began to enter the Sarmatian area between the middle of the 1st and the 2nd centuries. Language. The ancient language of the Alans was a northeastern Iranian dialect either identical, or at least closely related, to Proto-Ossetic, which is confirmed by evidence left by John Tzetzes, a Byzantine poet and grammarian who lived at Constantinople during the 12th century and who was related to Maria of Alania. Tzetzes gave a few sentences in the Alanic language, along with Greek translation, in his Theogony, and most of the words in the sample have modern Ossetic counterparts, including the greeting, Darban Xays, known from the JASZ word list of 1422 as well that Islam was introduced into the region in the 17th century. After 1767, all of Alania came under Russian rule, which strengthened Orthodox Christianity in that region considerably. The vast majority of today's Ossetians are followers of the traditional Ossetian religion.